Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to a new video. Today we'll dive into Algethar Academy and everything you need to know to be ready for Season 4. Now, as always, if you like my content, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below and consider subscribing. Now, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. When going into Algethar Academy, we first get an option to grab a buff. We have the options between 5% more haste from the Bronze Dragon, 1109 mastery from the Blue Dragon, 10% healing taken from the Green Dragon, 5% versatility from the Red Dragon, or 5% critical strike from the Black Dragon. Now, when you have your buff, it is time to move to the first mob and also boss area. This room has loads of mobs, but only few priority mobs that are actually dangerous. To spawn the boss, we will need to kill all of the foul lashers in the room. Now, these foul lashers will use detonating seeds, which will spawn little green swirlies, which you will simply need to move out of. Secondly, we see aggravated skitterflies. Make sure to soothe them when they get stacks of agitation, since this will increase their damage done by 25% per stack. Now, these skitterflies will randomly jump a target, dealing quite a chunk of damage, so try to make short work of them. Moving on to the Overgrown Ancient, we first start off with a tank buster called Bark Breaker. Now, Bark Breaker does quite a chunk of damage, so make sure you have some mitigation ready for this. Secondly, we see Germinate. You will want to stack up as a group and rotate around the boss. We will spawn brown swirlies underneath us, which will turn into lashers. Now, for the tanks, make sure to instantly grab aggro of these lashers, as they will apply poison to the primary target they're hitting. For the healers, make sure to keep spam dispelling this poison, since it will deal quite a chunk of damage. Now, the boss will also spawn one priority mob that we will need to keep interrupted, otherwise it will heal all the mobs around it and the boss. When we kill this mob, it will spawn a green circle underground, which we will need to get rid of our splinter bark stacks. The splinter bark stacks are a ticking dot that will stack up and deal quite a chunk of damage. Now, lastly on the list, we see Burst Fort. This is a big AoE hit, so make sure that you have some defensives ready for this, as it hits quite hard. Now, moving on to the next area, we see the Guardian Sentry. We will need to kill this mob in order to proceed, but it doesn't do a whole lot. It will do a tank buster every 10 seconds for some nature damage, so have some active mitigation ready for this. Other than that, it will spawn tornadoes on random players that will pretty much insta-kill you if you get in contact with it, so make sure to dodge these. Lastly, we see a spell called Expel Intruders, which we will simply need to line of sight, otherwise we will get insta-killed and get a massive knockback. Now, when we get to Craw, we will first have to deal with 3 phases of some eagles spawning before we can actually start engaging the boss. Now, these eagles are pretty harmless, but make sure that you don't engage them too early, because it is quite hard to get tread on them as a tank since they are coming out of the air. Now, for the main mechanics of the boss, for the tanks we will first see Savage Pack. This ability did get nerfed, but it is still quite a significant tank buster that will leave a bleed over time. Now, secondly, we see Deafening Screech. You will get a little circle around you, so make sure that you do not get in contact with anybody else, and you will take a big AoE hit. Now, every time you get this ability, you will get a debuff on you, which will increase the damage you take from the next Deafening Screech by 50%. Usually, you will destack this effect around the 3 or 4 stacks, depending on the key level. Now, to actually destack yourself from these stacks, you will have to throw 3 of the balls spawning around the room into either the fire or air circle. Now, if you use your 3 balls in the fire circle, the boss will get stunned for a little while and it will take 75% more damage for 12 seconds. Now, if you choose to go into the air circle, the entire boss room will be filled with air, which will knock you back, and there will be tornadoes around the room, which you will once again not want to get in contact with, as they will kill you. There will also be some orbs around the room that you can collect in order to increase your haste by 45%, and it will make you immune for the blowback. Now, when we're pathing towards Fmus, we see a few notable things. First of all, we see the Arcane Ravager. This will choose a target to dash to, but you can LOS it on the end of the cast and it won't jump at all. After this ability, it will instantly do a frontal to a random player and you just simply have to move out of this. Secondly, we see a Spellbound Scepter that uses Mystic Blast. This is an ability that you do need to interrupt, because even after recent tuning it will most likely still insta-kill your group. So make sure to always kick this. For tanks, keep an eye out on Battle Axes, as they use Severing Slash, leaving a nasty bleed on you, but you can however stop this with some CC. The unruly textbooks cost Monotus Lecture. You will need to kick this as it will put the target to sleep for 8 seconds, but if it does go through, it is dispellable in order to get rid of it. Now moving on to Fmus. We will first see Arcane Orbs. You will need to soak these orbs, otherwise the boss will gain 20% energy and every orb that you take will increase the damage from the next one you take by 100%. When the boss reaches 100%, it will do a big AoE hit to the entire group and it will spawn swirlies under you a few times, which you will just need to move out of. As third ability, we see Mana Bombs. These get thrown on 3 random players, which will deal ticking damage and then leave a puddle when they run out. You will need to drop these puddles at a convenient place as they do quite some damage, and you will also need a defensive since this mechanic hits quite hard. Now, there is a possibility that you run into an overlap from both the Mana Bombs and the big AoE. Now there is a way around this and I will leave a link in the description down below to a Wikara that I use for it, and you will simply need to let one of the orbs hit the boss whenever the Wikara tells you to, which will do quite some AoE damage to the group, but it will prevent people from getting one shot from both the Mana Bombs and the big AoE hit. Now, lastly, we see the boss doing a frontal called Arcane Expulsion. Now, if you don't like your group members, make sure to point it at them. Otherwise, make sure to point it away from your party. Now, for the last trash on the list, we see some Echo Knights that use Astral Whirlwind. This deals massive damage around them, so make sure to either stun them or tank them on the stairs so you can be a little bit below the mobs and they will not hit you at all. For the Invokers, we see them using Arcane Missiles. This is a need to interrupt ability as it will do massive channel damage into one target. Now moving on to the last boss on the list being Echo of Dagosa. This boss has been changed a little bit and it has received some tuning, so let's dive straight into what it is the boss does. When we first engage the boss, it will spawn 2 orbs in the middle of the room and it will do some minor AoE damage. Now this is the biggest change of the fight to start off with, since it makes it a little bit harder in terms of room management. Now you will want to stay pretty close to the boss as it will use a frontal on a random player, which will cost pretty fast and it will insta-kill you. For energy bombs, we will see one player getting targeted for some mediocre ticking damage and then explode. For the power vacuum, you will get sucked in and you will need to instantly move out of the big AoE circle around the boss in order to not get one shot. As last mechanic, we will see orbs flying out of those 2 beginning puddles that we saw at the beginning of the fight. If you get in contact with them, you will get a stacking debuff, which will increase your damage by 5% per stack, but it will leave another AoE puddle that will also expulse orbs at 3 stacks. This will also deal quite a chunk of damage whenever you reach the 3 stacks, so make sure to not get too many stacks. Other than that, every mechanic that you will get in contact with this boss will give you a stack, so make sure to use the room that you have quite efficiently. And that was everything you need to know in order to push your Algethar Academy keys in Season 4. Now leave a comment down below what your favorite dungeon is in Season 4 and make sure to leave a like. If you like my content, consider subscribing, and as always, hope to see you guys in the next one.